Hey you guys, it's Dani. Today in our little expansion to this bonding series, I just kind of want to continue to add to this as I do things in my practice, as things come up and like, oh yeah, I didn't talk about that. I'm just going to continue to add to this. And so I've been doing some kind of bigger pairings and I wanted to talk a little bit about that as bonding. Let me talk a little bit about pairing first, okay? So I know immediately when we say pairing, it's like, tarot and oracle, or, two decks together, like pairing decks together. And while I do mean that, absolutely, I'm also going to be talking about pairing decks with other forms of divination, whether that be pendulums or charms or runes or, other forms of divination and objects kind of paired with decks and tarot and oracle, decks in general. You're with me. Okay. So while this I'm going to be speaking, I'm going to say, let me say it this way. This might not be for everyone, and that's cool. Let me explain how I'm going to be speaking about kind of decks and oracles and objects and things like that. In my practice, in the way that I hold my belief structure, I do personify my decks as in the energy that they hold. I talk a lot about that in the way that things kind of feel together and the energies and how things flow. I know not everyone personifies their decks in that way and they use them strictly as another kind of tool. So that's the kind of verbiage I'm going to be using. If that's just not your vibe, that's cool. Maybe this video is not for you. Or you can think of it as in a different way. Like in the way I say, like, I feel like these speak to each other. You may think of it as in the way that maybe the colors correspond with each other, or maybe the artwork, or maybe the shapes, because there's usually some of that to it. When it comes to energies kind of meshing and flowing, it could be as simple as bringing in colors are very effective in energy. They have a tendency to affect moods, if you think of it in that way. Something very bright may have a sense of enlightening or joy to it sometimes. If it gets too bright, it can be harsh, right? And if you have certain colors in one thing that kind of flow to another, it can feel similar, right? So you can look at it in that way, or you can just come with me on my journey in the way that I talk about it, but just know that I am talking about it that way because that's how it works for me and my practice, my belief system, and my structure. So I'm going to be talking about all kinds of different things today. As usual, I'm going to try to link what I can down below, or if I don't have the exact thing, I'm going to try to at least link some examples or whatever I can right down below with everything that's going to be in the description box, so look for that for sure. But I think I want to start with why I pair. When it comes to pairings, oftentimes I will do this. It's like, honestly, when I feel the need, like when I feel like there's something missing. Sometimes the pairing is there to stay. Like I will only use this deck with this oracle, or I will only use this deck if I have my runes, or I will only use, do you see what I mean? I will only use this deck at my altar. I won't take it away. It is paired with my altar kind of idea. So some pairs are there to stay, while other pairs are like, oh, I'm going to give this reading to a client. I can't get, let's say, I have this right here. I can't get the Crimson Eye Tarot out of my mind. I have to use this. There's something about it that I just feel really drawn to. However, I feel like there's something missing. So I feel like, what does it need? What does it need? I feel like it needs something a little bit that keeps the dark, but has to incorporate something else. So maybe I'll grab, you know, my Old Ways magic because it still keeps the black in there. It's got a deep, dark outline. It'll still look cohesive, but it brings a different kind of energy, a totally different kind of energy, where this seems a little airy and a little dreamy. This brings a good earth. So maybe there's a balance that needs to be struck when I read for this person. So this pairing might not stay, but it's what I need for this reading. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay. So that's kind of like why I would pair. And sometimes it's just because I want to play around. I want to see something next to each other. I want to see what it looks like. You know, it could just be for fun stuff too. I mean, why not? And especially when it comes to like other divination, it's usually, what am I using this for? Where am I going with this? Is it for a reading? Am I going to want to get a more of a specific, I'm going to air quote, like fortune teller style answer? Do I want to get some real hard yes or no answers? For those, I would maybe use a pendulum, or I would use, look, I have one in, I haven't even taken it out of this little wrapper, because it's a new coin. I have yes and no coins. This is my first, well, I got one from, the Crooked Cat. My little girl promptly stole that from me. I don't know where that's at. She stole it. But I said stole it. She stole it. Directly. She was like, can I have this? I was like, oh my God, Lennon. And then it was just gone. So I was like, whoa, yes, apparently. But there are these really nifty yes or no coins. But I always feel like, I'm like, they're so heavy. Like, I don't think I would use this practically. Like, I don't want to say practically. Like, if I was going to read somewhere, like, I don't think I would bring something like this with me, because it's very dramatic seeming because they're so heavy. It's not like when you flip a coin. Like, this has got some big weight to it. You know what I mean? And so I'd be scared to just, like, you know, clank it everywhere. But, like, for me, it's fine. I'd just flip it and allow it to land. So you can do some hard yes or no. So I would get something or some form of divination that's going to have a very hard yes or no. So that could be something like I said, pendulums, yes or no coins. I would bring maybe a Lenormand with me, or a playing card deck. That's really going to give me some solid yes or no, because I tend, like, yes, you can get solid yes or no with tarot, but personally, the way that I use tarot is more along the lines of reading the energy as a story versus looking into, like, give me some blunt yes, no. Like, I'm not trying to see around it and see in it. I just, give me some flat answers. Then I wouldn't necessarily use tarot for some flat answers. That's just not how that energy works. Because even with, and this is more just getting into how I read, even with something like this, especially working with pendulums, I will often, like, oh, it's a no, but it's really slow. And even that holds energy around it. Like, I feel like it's a real sludge to kind of get around this no. So maybe it's like, it's no for now. It's like hard to get around this. So maybe this can change. This is very reluctant. You know, it could always have something. But that, again, that's going into a different realm completely. But it's like, I don't want to get too much in the weeds. I want some solid yes or no's. So that would be another reason why I would add other forms of divination, for a little more expansion upon what we're reading. So reading and then specifics, right? Something a little more in depth, right? To add that little lanyap, that little something extra, right? So I hope that made sense. Listen, I didn't outline anything. I'm just talking to you guys. I'm trying. I'm trying. This is real. Okay. But anyway, I think the best way to properly kind of show that and kind of expand on that premise and the meaning that I'm trying to get to and why it's beneficial to your bonding with a deck or even a system or a form of divination, why pairing can be just a really great tool to really see what it can do, is because you want to see how it interacts with different things. I think it really does give you a bigger outlook and a more expansive view of what can be really gotten from these tools. So I think showing and talking about it visually, being able to see and kind of expand on that, is probably going to be the easiest way to explain it. So let's kind of look at all this. So on my desk right now, we have Madame Lydia Wilhelmina's deck of the, let me see if I remember, Monsters, Macabre, and Autumn Scenes. I have been having this deck for a while. I haven't quite bonded with it yet. I'm still so torn as to whether or not I love it or I don't. And so I felt like this was the perfect deck to go into a pair bonding with, because I feel like there's something missing. There's something that I'm just not connecting with. So maybe pairing it with something is what it's missing. It needs to be brought out in some other way, shape, or form. So that's kind of what the premise of this bonding, the look into bonding with pairing, is going to be like. I'm just going to try to figure out if there's something that I can bond this deck with, or a few things that maybe bring it out a little bit more and help me reach for it a little bit more. And if that's not the case, that's okay, right? But it's one that I feel like I'm missing something, so I want to try to find that missing piece. So you can see already that I do have some crystals, so sometimes that's a good pair. This, I've had these crystals with it since I got it. They feel very bonded to this deck in that way, where it's like if I am reading with them, I do keep them around. And I cleanse them when I cleanse the deck, and I keep them charged on the deck. We have some clear quartz and a little bitty hunk of amethyst. That's not something I always do. Matter of fact, this is one of only a few decks, I mean less than a handful, of decks that I have that live with crystals. A lot of times I charge crystals, I charge decks with crystals, but I don't often have them living with them. So this is definitely one that actually has that. So it is bonded with those. I don't think I would read without it. It does bring in kind of a livened energy. So I do keep those there. So I'm going to put those aside. That is something that you can always do. Something that helps bring the vibrations that you want, bring the energy that you want. Or in just regular pairing, if you're going for a certain kind of reading, that's a great thing to pair just as a reading tool in general. So it might not be bonded with the deck itself, but if I'm going in for a relationship reading, I might bring in maybe some rose quartz and amethyst. That way I get a balanced look at what's going on. So you can kind of play with it that way. But here, I'm talking about bonding it to the deck. So let's kind of talk about that. So right now I grabbed 3 different decks. I have another one on this side. 2 of them I kind of chose for aesthetic purposes, and one literally at random. Okay, so I have the Earthbound Oracle. I thought that maybe it would look pretty good next to it. I know it won't be perfect, but it has some similar, I don't know why some are out of order, whatever, anyway. It won't be perfect, but I felt like it it might kind of go with it. It might kind of set a vibe. And this one is the Oracle of Great Mystics. And I knew it was kind of completely different, but I thought it could, I don't know, maybe it would read nicely next to it. It's a beautiful oracle, but it does feel completely different, and maybe it needs something that's completely different. So I grabbed one of each. So we're just going to see how that goes, how it reads, how it feels next to each other. And then I grabbed one that I know I've used with it before, and I've gotten pretty good readings with it together. This is actually aesthetically pleasing next to it. And I know that this deck is a good reader with it, so we'll kind of see how it plays out in like a simple way. So what I normally do is just kind of, whoa, that one flew out. Just kind of take a, oh my gosh, I'm like literally pulling things off my desk because I have the boxes on here. Let me move this box, and this is what flew out. So we have our strength card. Okay, so let's put this near, strength and balance. Well, I do like the look of it next to each other right here. That kind of makes sense to me, especially the fact that we actually have strength with these kind of like horns, and then we have these antlers on this deer creature. So I really like the look of it because for me, look is, it's not everything, obviously, but it really helps with my OCD brain. I like to see things that feel like they flow and fit. So oftentimes that's usually a requirement for me, but not always, because I have sat at the desk and gathered decks for, especially for a client. I'm like, I'm really sorry, these are going to be really ugly together, but this is what I felt was right. So sorry in advance. So there's a big difference when it comes to finding a pair, right? Or doing what is required for a reading. So, but in the most part, my brain really likes to see something that not only flows, but also looks good together, because it just makes me feel a little more calm. That's just a me thing. So I really like the look of this, but how would it read together? And I feel like just this simple message, it looks really good to me, especially like holding that strength. Like there's a time for strength, but there is a balance needed, right? It can't be all tough love all the time, but you also can't, bear a burden silently, right? It's got to be somewhere in the middle. There's got to be a give and take, even when it comes to strength. You have to know when to set things down. You have to know when to pursue. So I really like that message. I really like the way that looks. So a win for that. Let's try it in a bigger scale, because sometimes that's kind of where it trips up and it doesn't quite look right. So let's go ahead and kind of see where this goes. Let me move this out of the way. Push this up so we can kind of see. See, this is what I mean. Like, no longer does it look as good. No longer does it look as good, right? Obfuscate and Ceremony look really good. Air seems off. It doesn't feel like it fits in with this deck. So there may be some keywords and some things that don't really flow with that. I mean, we can always talk about air, but I feel like it might be a little obtuse for this deck, because there's not a lot of elemental things. So I feel like this may be a little too elemental in that way. Like those kind of things. Like, some of these really go, like death, home, grow. But I feel like some stuff like travel, like that's, I don't know if that's going to go so much. Some of the things really will. But I feel like the simpler things, like even like the fire, the terra, maybe. See, I feel like labor. I don't know. Well, I feel like some of them would work. There's some that I don't know how well it would read with. I guess it would all depend. It would all depend for sure. But like even with this, the Empress, the Two of Coins, the King of Wands. You know, if you kind of read them together, it's like there may be something missing from this kind of Empress energy. So maybe there's not enough of this kind of Empress vibe. It's a little bit, is it too much or is it too little, right? Is it smothering? Or is there lack of care going on, right? We're back with the balance again in the Two of Coins. Maybe things are off balance. Is being kind of pushed around by, you know, air, thoughts, communication. Things are off balance. The communication isn't good. There's a lot of assumptions going on. We have this King of Wands that might be coming in, trying to set things straight with this kind of fire element. Okay. Especially with the ceremony right underneath. Like there may need to be like a formal communication session, right? Need to have a meeting, need to get together and talk this out because there's obviously miscommunication. Things are not going over well. Things are not being dealt with properly. So, I mean, again, we're reading pretty well. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know if I would reach for it. Like seeing it this way, I don't know if it's one that I would reach for. So that's really interesting. Okay. So that's that one. So let's try this one that's like completely off kilter here. So let's pull one. We have the Wheel of Fortune and just the first one off the top. Your witchcraft. It says spellwork and divination. Gather materials and revel. Step under the moon. I mean, we're seeing wheels repeated, which is interesting. This feels like it could speak to, if we're going this way. It actually doesn't quite look bad with it. This would definitely be something a little more specific, though. I'm feeling with these kind of keywords. But I mean, in the scheme of things, this tells me something about, you know, sometimes things are up, sometimes things are down. If you want to take that control, go to your witchcraft, right? We know this craft for a reason. We do these things for a reason. Set your intentions, right? When you feel like things are a little bit out of your control, maybe you are not setting your intentions. Maybe you are not focused on the path that you're going for, right? Maybe you're just kind of up in the air and it's time to reevaluate, reset those intentions, and go forward from there. Use your witchcraft. Use your spell work. Go under the moon. Write things down. Speak them out loud. That can kind of change the way that things are going. So, okay, well, I'm actually quite surprised at how that kind of worked out with that. Okay, so let's try a little bit bigger. So let's go here. I'm dropping all these cards, you guys. I'm just going to shuffle them. Hold on. They were all falling out and like going crazy. Okay. Let's just do this. Okay, that's good. We'll do 3. A Pear. And then let's just pull through here. Okay. So again, as strange as it is, I don't hate the look of this. Immediately I feel like this would be meant to like read this, then summarize with this. So I guess that's what we're going to do. So we have the 10 of coins, the 3 of wands, and the 6 of swords. So immediately I feel like in order to get to this place of completion that you're looking for, to kind of end this chapter, get yourself stable so you can move on to the next place, you really have to put in the work that's necessary to get it done. Because I feel like there are some parts missing right now. It is the 3 of wands, so you're past the planning stage, but that action just hasn't come in yet. And the 6 of swords feels like that's probably because you have things that you're holding on to that kind of need to be left behind. You need to let go of some of these past digressions or whatever it is that's going on so that you can move forward. Because until you do that, you're not going to be complete. You're not going to be settled enough to allow this new stuff to come in, right? So at the bottom, what are we seeing here at the bottom? In terms of that, your path of light, follow and trust, do not stray, darkness encroaches. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. Right now, you have to reset. You got to follow your path. There is a lot of stuff that's going on. You really have to let that go. You have to push that aside in order to keep on your path. I mean, there's always going to be obstacles in your way, so that makes sense. Womb of love, an elemental moment, fertility. Because good things are coming. The more you work on this, the more you get that plan into action, the more action that comes, the closer you are to that completion. There is that fertility there. There is that idea of growth that's coming. So in this last part, this wise witch, it says kindness and comfort, the ageless moon. So yeah, it feels like there's a lot to be had. There's a lot of things that you can learn from this experience, a lot of things that you can grow into a whole new space, right? Learn the things that you need to be a better, I don't know, it sounds like a business, right? To be maybe a better business owner, to know where you're going, to know how to get there and to start this new chapter. This is a learning moment. And the growth that you're going to accomplish by doing this is really going to be beneficial. So, you guys, I'm kind of shook. I'm not going to lie. Well, that's surprising to me. Okay, so I was expecting this to be, like, terrible with this, if I was being honest. I was like, this is not going to work. This is totally different. It's got a totally different feel. It's got a totally different look. It's got, whatever. But somehow it works. I love this card. Anyway, so, okay. So that's really surprising at how well that flowed together. So, I don't know. Maybe this is one that I could use with this deck. Okay. Interesting. Huh. So, anyway, this is one that I actually use with this deck. So I'll just pull one card so you can kind of see. So, we have Judgment. And Transition. And I love the fact that this Judgment card, this is actually the bottom half here, is the portrait of Mary Boleyn. Not Mary Boleyn. Oh my God, listen to me. Mary Tudor. And when I think of Judgment and I think of Mary Tudor, there's so much there. People hated her. And she changed a lot in England. And I love how Judgment and Transition is kind of both coming in there. Because in this Judgment, in the background, there seems to be some kind of ritual going on in the background, and I feel like this is kind of noticing the error of your ways, making that transition, making that that change that's really needed. And for this purpose, because I'm thinking of Mary Tudor, that's not always a good thing. Sometimes you come in with your own righteousness, with your own ideas, and you want to push that onto others. So instead of kind of coming into a position of power and creating a space of safety and harmony and kind of bringing people together and being a good leader in whatever way, shape, or form is best for everyone as a whole. Sometimes we come into these things that I know what's best, so it's my way or the highway, and the transition is not always graceful, and it's not always wanted, and it's not always what people need, right? And that's an upheaval of its own. So you have to be prepared for the lashing that's going to come back when we do stuff like this, and we don't consider other people when we go forward and change everything that people are used to, just because we feel like we know best. We can do things in a manner that's a little more subtle, right? Piece by piece instead of all at once. That often helps, right? But this sort of transition just might not go over well. So you can see, like, automatically there are some things that it pulls out right away, which is why I read with this one. It was the first one that I thought, oh, aesthetically it would look really great with. And I've read with it, and it does tend to pull out a lot of really great things. So this is one that I definitely pull towards to read. But now I have another option in something completely different, which I find really unique. And one that I thought would be good and isn't. So it's, again, an exercise in playing what does it speak with and what doesn't it. It needs a little more depth to the words, where we still have simple words like beauty and freedom. It's more than just like air, right? Terra. There's more to it than that. So we found that out about this. So I find that really interesting. So when it comes to pairing, I know now, after using this deck with a few different oracles, that I now know it needs a little more depth to the keywords or whatever it's going to be paired with. It doesn't really work well with something overly simplified or vague, right? So the last little bit that I would like to talk about, just as a side note, really, about pairing decks and why not only I feel like it brings something to maybe decks that feel like something is missing, like this one. I feel like something is missing, so I want to find something that pairs well with it. So I won't really read with this by itself. I'll read with it with a companion that'll kind of expand on those readings, because I feel like some ways they fall flat, right? But aside from that, another reason why I like to find the pairs that a deck really reads well with is for things like year ahead readings or bigger spreads, where I personally use multiple decks to read with. So in cases like that, the last thing I want to do is put a bunch of decks together that literally feel like they don't speak to each other at all. You know, and when I do big readings like that, birthday readings, year ahead readings, things like that, or anyone that I feel like I want to pull multiple cards for each, you know, space, I want to make sure that they talk to each other, that they feel cohesive, that they will tell a story, and they're not going to fight against each other, right? Something that's really going to match the energy that's needed. So that's just a little tidbit as to, like, well, what would be the point of that? And listen, this is how I read. You can literally grab any random decks, put them all together and read, if that is your prerogative. Again, I'm just talking about the way that I read, the way that I use the energy of the situation, the decks, and how they speak to each other, to the benefit of the reading, the client, myself, overall energy. So anyway, that was just a little extra tidbit as to why I like to find really good pairs and why I play around with pairs so much, because I like to have them in kind of my back pocket when I go to do bigger spreads that require multiple decks, or that I like to use multiple decks for each set. So anyway, on to divination. So when it comes to other forms of divination and pairing it with readings, more so than just decks, right? I love to use all kinds of stuff, but I want to start first with runes, because I love to use runes as a starter. So it's not something that I normally use during or after, unless it's a special occasion or something that I feel like I need. But I love to start off certain readings with that, especially if we're doing like a general reading, or like I was just talking about, like year ahead or a birthday reading. Like if I want a theme, if I want a kind of start to the reading, what are we gonna focus on? What's the most important thing? If you come to me and say, I just kind of want a general reading about my life, I'll say, okay, let's start out. Let's grab a little bag of runes, or my bigger runes, depending. These are hard to see. Matter of fact, let me grab my other ones, because you're not going to be able to see the... So, grab my runes. Okay, so what I would do is I would pull the rune. These you can see a lot better. These are like milky glass, I guess you would call it. So I would put the rune here. So this one, forgive me, I always say the names wrong. Perdro is how I pronounce it. It's like Perdhro, I think it's spelled. Perdro. Regardless, a lot of times it speaks about something being hidden, like a mystery, like something like that. That's kind of what I think about when I think of this rune. So obviously coming to this, if we're talking about something in your life, you kind of general, there might be something kind of hidden from your view right now, something that you're not seeing, right? A bit of a mystery going on, something that you need to unravel. So that's how I would start it out with. So, okay, this is kind of the main theme that we're going to be talking about. So what is it right now in your life that may be hidden to you, that maybe you need to unravel right now? That seems to be the most important thing as we're going into this reading. So when it comes to general readings, a lot of times I really love to incorporate runes in there just to find that anchor for it. Is it always necessary? No, but it is a really fun exercise, not only to use runes in that way and to add it to your reading, but I just feel like it gives a solid base sometimes when, at least for me, sometimes when people come and there's just a lot of energy going on, right? And so it's like, okay, well, we have to tame all of this because this is going to be scattered and long. We want it to be as precise and focused as we can. That way we give a solid message versus like a whole bunch of different jumbled things, right? We want a solid message. So this is a really great way to do that, especially if I'm doing a year ahead. I love to use these because that tells me, okay, well, this is a year of unfolding mysteries, right? This is a year of things that maybe come out of nowhere. You might have a lot of things that just kind of show up in your lap this year. So let's kind of talk about what's going on. There might be things that you're not going to be able to see. There might be things that might be hidden from our view, but we're going to do the best to fish through this energy and see what's going to be happening, what you need, right? So this is always a lot of fun to pull, and that's my favorite way to pair it with a reading, is to pull this at the beginning and then go from there. I mean, I've seen people also use them as, you know, something for each. You know, kind of going through. And having it as a companion for each card, right? Or you can lay down your reading, reach in and just kind of pull these down, see what comes out, and have this kind of added to it in whatever way, shape, or form. It's just another layer to add on to the reading or separate from the reading, in addition to, in the same way that Oracle can be, you know? So I love to use these. These are my favorite to start it out with, right? That's my ultimate favorite to use runes with. But you can also add them, like I said, in any other way, shape, or form that you want. Up next is charms. So I love charms. I love charms. So there's a few different ways that I like to use charms. Again, I will sometimes dig in my bag in the same way that I do with runes and pull up whatever wants to come up. So these want to come up. Okay, so we have a maple leaf. We have the Om symbol. And then we have my little star, which is very alchemical to me. So I feel like with this, you can start off this reading feeling like, oh, there's a lot of changes coming. There's this, with Om, I feel creation, right? That's the sound of creation. So there are new things, new beginnings coming in. Especially with this alchemy, like you've been creating this, you finally found the right pieces. And the autumn definitely feels like it's being called for. So this might be something that's coming up in the autumn. So we might be talking about the season that's coming up. In the autumn is when this is all going to start happening and start going forward with you. So that may be where we start here, right? So another way that I like to use charms which is also pretty cool, is if I have a certain question, right, about, let's say, I have a B. So let's say I have a question about work, and I pulled these cards, and I'm like, which card represents the most, like what's going on with work for me? So I got this little bee, he fell all the way off to this side. So definitely on the side of the Hanged Man. So that would tell me the most about that. Or maybe I would, shake it and drop it. Well, it fell on death. Maybe it's time to let go of this job, right? So that's always fun. Another way Another fun thing to do is to kind of set up cards in a circle in the same way a casting would be, and kind of get the charms that represent what you want. Again, I have all these charms. Rarely do I ever like throw them everywhere. I kind of want to focus on certain things. So maybe I have a dime for finance. I have a Cancer charm for my zodiac sign. So for me, I have, let's see, I have a little robin for my family because I was a Robin. So I'm going to do that, and maybe a compass for travel. So I have these. So I'll stick these back in the bag. Whoa. And I guess we'll take that one then. What do we have here? And wander. So maybe something, I said this was maybe travel. So maybe something to look into. So then I'll kind of shake that around and drop it and kind of see where they land. So with family, that landed on the 5 of coins. So maybe things not so well. Things maybe seem a little separate. Might need to work on that. We're not going to go into that. Not with my little family. With it's fine. Anyway, with travel, the 8 of Cups, and it's right here by Wonder. Like maybe it's time to put those ducks in a row. Time to look forward to travel, to kind of walk away from this place for a little while. But we need to see where we want to go. What brings that wanderlust? So that's very interesting. And my other ones fell here with the moon. Me, as a Cancer with the moon. Hello. Hi. It's me. How are you? And my finances with the moon. They're kind of a mystery right now. Woo! So it's a lot of fun. Like, it's kind of up in the air. So these are really fun ways to use casting. I especially like this, especially if you just kind of want to find out some specifics and don't want to do a regular, like, let me pull these cards and read these cards. You can choose your charms, lay cards out in whatever way they come, and then just throw them. Or you can do the opposite, where you lay out specific cards and then just take your charms and let them fall where they will, and then read them that way. So charms and tarot really work well together. It's so much fun to play around with this. I play around with this quite often because I just feel like it adds, I don't know, it adds a lot of fun to it. And I like to collect. I like to collect charms too, to like add when I'm like, oh, this can represent this or this can represent that. So that always makes it a little exciting as well. And I don't know, it just makes it one more thing to kind of add to readings, you know? Especially if you want something specific, again, want something to add, or if at the end you want to kind of shake it up and see what's most important, you can kind of grab some and just kind of toss here and say, okay, so at the end of this reading, you know, maybe it's the hope. So maybe let's not put all your hope into this King of Coins, right? Maybe he's not everything you want him to be. He is a lot, but don't put all your hope there. I feel like there is still some mystery about this Queen of Coins. She's a little more stable than you're giving her credit for. So maybe don't put all your hope into him. You need to still be looking at this person who's really giving you a hand and trying to help you. She's an anchor. I don't think she's going to drag you down. She's really going to get you level-headed, which is what you need. But I don't think you know a lot about her, so don't count her out. When it comes to the Eight of Coins, there might be some people in your family that maybe you need to walk away from that aren't very good for you. We have my wooden tooth here. I call it the wooden tooth, which is about truth with this Eight of Coins. With the triquetra, with this Ace of Coins, like there's a lot of truth to this. There's a lot of harmony with this Ace of Coins. There's a lot of coins in this thing. I'm just noticing that. Anyway, there's that Five of Coins right here. There's a lot of truth to this. Like, things are getting better. I would definitely put your faith in this. This is a bit of a sign of protection. Like, you are being watched over. There are things that are coming to you. You can hold that very truth. So again, after you've done your reading, you can come back and say, like, these final thoughts. They're just, I don't know. This is the most fun, you guys. Like, I don't know. If you've never done charm work, if you've never done stuff like this, highly recommend. 10 out of 10. It's just so much fun. And then again, you set your own meanings to these charms. There's also some really great, I think I did that with the Mystic Fam. I think I did that with the Mystic Fam. I don't know if I did that on the channel. Did we talk about that on the... Anyway, regardless. I know for sure in the Mystic Fam we talk a lot about charms. We did a whole thing on charms. But you can find some really great information on charms. But you can also, which I like to do, is just kind of find little objects and trinkets or whatever charms you get. Like, create your own. Because these are your charms. I mean, like, for this, it's just a wooden bead, but it looks like a tooth to me. It reminds me of a tooth. And when I first started messing with it, like, my train of thought went like, oh, this kind of looks like a tooth. Wooden tooth. Like, oh, didn't they say he had wooden teeth? Wait, one of our founding fathers said, I must not tell a lie, and they chopped down the cherry tree. Was that George Washington or was that Lincoln? I think it might have been Lincoln. Regardless, wooden tooth, that's kind of tell the truth. So the tooth of truth, it's a wooden tooth of truth. So that's where I got that from. Follow your train of thought. So now every time I see this is the tooth of truth, right? So, and that may change in a different reading. I might see this and think of something completely, like a chip off of something, like something is broken, something is missing a piece. But for the most part, I see this and I know that this is the tooth of truth. Right? It may shift and change over the ages, but for now, this is my tooth of truth. And it's mine. Nobody can tell me that it's not. It's my charm. My choice. So charms are just so much fun, and they're very personable. And I think they're a great addition to readings, especially. They're a great pair to have. Just a last little mention, because I did talk about pendulums. I do have my favorite, my little gray agate pendulum. So I have all these laid out. So with something like this, I know it's really hard to see on camera, but with these, I would, finish up if there's any like yes or no questions that come up where it's like, is there something, does this feel like a yes or no? Does this feel like something that you have to worry about? I would, set my thing and ask, is this something that you need to worry about? Get the answer. Or, out of these cards, is there something that is the most important to focus on right now? Can you tell me which card is the most important to focus on right now? And then wait for that answer. Which, again, I know you can't see it. But the shifting between the King and Queen of Coins. So that might tell me, like, this right here is the most important aspect of this reading. This is what you mostly need to focus on. If maybe there was just a bunch of stuff that came out, I might pull this out and ask, what is there was a lot of stuff to focus on. What is the most important thing? Where do you want to start? Right? Where do you want to start? This might be the main place to start. Again, yes or no questions. This is always great to have. So I know I did mention Lenormand and other fortune telling cards and playing cards and things like that. I just feel like that might be a little too far out of the pairing realm right now to go into, because those can get a little more complicated. At least for me, they get a little more complicated because those are usually way more in depth. But of course, it would be in the same way. You can pull your cards and then pull some Lenormand. Because they read in such a different way, it's kind of like the way they would read in, runes or, even charms, where it would almost be like a separate clarifier is how I usually pair those, like as separate clarifiers. So when it comes to that, maybe I'll do like a different video on maybe how I use those kinds of decks versus like tarot and oracle, like maybe like how and when I use Lenormand and playing card decks or fortune telling decks. That may be a whole nother realm on its own, thinking about it now. Like as I'm at my desk and be like, that I could be here forever. Talking about those kind of things. But these are just some of the ways that I like to pair. And then it also, again, these kind of things really help me bond. Like, I'm not going to lie, the charms with this deck was probably the most exciting. These might be really fun just to play with charms with. As well as using that vintage wisdom oracle, which is obviously my favorite, and then exploring again with this great mystics and using this deck. It was really eye-opening. So this has given me a little more excitement to use this deck. So I think it's done its job trying to pair it with stuff. It makes me want to reach for this, especially I think with this charm set. It's like I want to pull some more cards now and like pull some charms and kind of see where that goes. I don't know why it feels so fitting. It could just be the vibes that it carries. It's like meant to have little trinkets around it, and sometimes that's just the way it works. Like maybe this is a charm deck. I'm kind of excited about it, honestly. more so than I have been in a long time. So hooray for that. Like, I'm seriously, I want to like, ooh, I want to play with this with my charms. And like, now I'm like, ooh, I want to go grab me some more charms. I need one for this and this and this. Oh, anyway, so I hope that you found this informative, you guys, and helpful. So, yeah, leave any questions you have down below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this extra part of our bonding series. Please let me know down below if you guys do pairings. What are your favorite pairings? I love trying new stuff together. I peruse Instagram and YouTube. I look at what everybody's pairing, and I'm always trying new things. It keeps it fresh, it keeps it exciting, and there's that play aspect that I really just, I love to do every once in a while. It kind of reminds me to take joy also in the things that that I love doing. Don't be so serious sometimes, just kind of play around too. So it's a good exercise for me. But anyway, like I said at the beginning, anything that I can, I will link down below, or at least something that's similar to it if I don't have the exact thing, like some of the coins or pendulums or anything like that. If you're looking to join the Mystic fam, we do like live chats, arts and crafts, talk grimoire stuff, bonus content, all that's going to be linked down below, as well as how to get to 3 Fat Readers, which is a collaborative channel where we talk tarot, me and Lisa, at Lisa Pepez, Dustin at Modern Metaphysique, so don't miss out on that. That's linked down below, as well as how to book a reading with me, my Etsy shop, other social medias, all the good stuff. All going to be in the description down below. I think that's about it. I will see you guys very soon. I'm sending you all my love. Mwah! Later, Gators!